Hey, welcome to another episode of the Comfortable Couch Show. And my name is Mark Underwood, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the host of this show, and I'm also trained as a cognitive behavioral therapist, which doesn't probably mean a lot to the average person. But I specialize in anxiety and depression. It's what I've been doing for the last probably 15 years. But I also do relationship things too. That's part I do behavioral therapy. Because people come to me with two things. I'm going to say it. You're going to hear, if you listen to my show, you're going to hear this regularly. Two things people come to a therapist for. And they don't like what's going on in their head, the way they're thinking and feeling. But they don't like the way their relationships are going. And they want to improve one or the other or both. My average client is usually coming to me with a combination of problems of both of those. Because if you have one, you have the other. Usually. I mean, if you're depressed and anxious, you're probably having relationship problems. And if you're having relationship problems, you're probably depressed and anxious or have some symptoms. And so targeting this, most of my clients, probably 70% are women. And relationship issues are a hot topic. And in fact, I just had somebody call, one of my long-timers, somebody I really like, that's been very loyal to me over the years, and said, look, I need some immediate direction here. I'm seeing a guy, and he wants to see me, and I'm trying to figure out where this guy stands. And so what I'm talking about tonight in my podcast it's called Ones, Twos, and Threes, a guide for women to understand men better. And this guide, I'm simplifying men, but I think when I do this in sessions, because like when I do these podcasts, I do these kind of off the top of my head because this is material I use in sessions all the time. I've talked about this 100, 150 times, maybe 200. So it's not foreign. It's like I'm working off a script and I'm watching notes and reading stuff off. It's not what I do. And people bring sort of the same problems to me, and I sort of have the same things that I help people with. And women want to know, how do I understand men? How do I pick better? I got a guy now I'm getting rid of. I need to get rid of him. He's not working, or is he fixable, or what? So that's what I'm doing here. So that's what we're going to do. I put kind of a simplistic guide together. Ones, twos, and threes. Ones, obviously, in this case, are the bottom scale. A 1 is not good. A 3 is what you're looking for. So let's talk about this. Here's a guy who's a 1. A guy who's a 1 is someone who does not function well on a daily basis in society. Now, he may be a handsome guy. He may have muscles. He may be a smooth dressed guy and smooth talking guy. He can look successful. But when you get past the facade and you see how he operates on a daily basis, he's not a guy who does daily life well. He's not a guy who can get up in the morning, shower and shave, get up at the alarm, go to work, act appropriately at work, be able to do what we have to do as adults, which is boring, routine things over and over again. That's really a key to life. If you can't do things in repetition and do them well and not be bored and quit or blow up at the boss, guys who are 1s can't do that. They don't like working for somebody else. Somebody telling them what to do is disrespecting them, or they think they know more than the boss, or they want control, or they can't show up to work because they've got addictions. They drink too much. They like to party. They're too smoked up in the morning to get up and go to work, or they roll out. They do something stupid at work. They're not guys who function well, or they just don't have much of a desire to work. They kind of work when they want, but they tend to be, as my friend Ron says, they're fringe guys. They're guys on the fringe of society. They may have a drug problem. They may have a gambling problem. They may have a drinking problem. They may have a domestic violence problem. Or they may be just overgrown children who have no impulse control. Now, if a woman is looking for a guy to have a spring break fling with, a 1 will be just fine. You want to go to Puerto Vallarta and have a fling with some guy on a cruise? One's fine. There won't be enough time for him to show his true colors, and you may not be asking him to. Short-term relationship's good for a one. But a one is a guy, let me put it this way, from a man, and men always know exactly, men don't fool other men. Let me put it this way. Men don't fool me. Women have fooled me over the course of my life. My first wife certainly fooled me. I've had a girlfriend or two that fooled me, because men only understand men. We know what it's like to be us. We don't know what it's like to be women. We don't understand the rules of women. Women don't fool women. The only people that fool women are men. Women can read women just fine. Some girl shows up to date your son when you're 40, you can read her just perfect. Same thing. So these guys who are ones, let me tell you, they can be great road dogs, great guys to go to a game with, go shoot pool with, go be on the softball team, whatever. They may even be guys that you'd like having your back in a dark alley at night when there's trouble. But here's what you don't want. You don't want these guys working for you because they're not going to be reliable. You don't want to work for them because they're never going to be there. Again, they're not going to be reliable. You're terrible. They're going to burn their business down. And you don't want to work with them because you're going to be doing their job and covering for them. And you don't want them dating your sister. Right? So let me give you an example. This is my favorite one story. I don't think I've ever told this in session, but my wife and I have talked about this over the years. We had this guy who worked on I like old cars. My wife would say that's my only bad habit. I don't have one now. I sold my AMC Javelin, a 69 Javelin SST. I don't have it anymore. My wife is happy. She doesn't like old cars. They're trouble. But this guy was a guy known for like 30 years, almost since high school. And he was probably pretty close to a one, to be quite honest with you. He was skirting there pretty close. But he would hire guys, to come and sand and do the grunt work on cars he didn't want to do. They'd be taking fenders off and stripping sand, stripping hoods and taking off trim and taping up the windshields, getting ready to paint. And he told me, man, I went over to his house I think I dropped some parts off. And he said, yeah, this guy, and I met this guy that he'd known from high school that he was going to give a job to. This guy had gotten in trouble with his living common law wife or fiance. I can't remember whether he got caught texting other women or it was just because he was being a meatball and a bum and she was having to do all the work around the house. He wasn't working regularly I didn't really pay attention to that load of the story because these guys tended to, be around for a few months and they'd float off the other direction. And this guy's dog with him and he moved in with my buddy. And I'm just not to give the guy sandbagging, but he looked like a giant hangdog. Right? This is important to the story. He was dressed in kind of a white t-shirt and sloppy, dirty jeans and cheap tennis shoes. And he looked like the kind of guy, if you patted him on the shoulder, like dust would come off him. Like he looked like he needed to be either sandblasted or run through a car wash. He wasn't kempt. His hair wasn't done. He didn't look like he was having a good time in life. And he wasn't putting much effort into trying to make a good time out of life that way either. So this went on for a few weeks and I'd go over and he'd be grumbling a little bit about the guy after a couple weeks. And after like 3 or 4 weeks, probably 4 weeks, he said, yeah, he's just having trouble with him. He's not showing. He's finding reasons to not work. He finally hit my buddy up for a couple $100, disappeared, stole some tools. I think he stole an air ratchet and a paint gun and left his dog there and wouldn't return calls, ghosted. And my buddy said, Mark, look, I've done some pretty crappy things in my life. I've probably gotten some people for some money and I may have gotten some people for some tools. I can overlook that. But he said, what kind of guy abandons his dog, his old dying dog? And he goes, I got this dog, probably put him to sleep now. He's urinating on my garage floor. He's depressed and he's sick. Well, that wasn't the end of the story. A couple weeks later, I went to his house and my wife and I went over and did something. We were going to talk about something. And we were watching the game, might have been a Cubs game. And we're shooting the bull and the doorbell rings. And this really nice looking gal, pretty nice looking, she was nice looking enough that she got my attention. Like, I'm trying to figure out what she's doing there. At first, I thought my buddy was dating her. It wasn't his type, though. He was more into the barfly girls. And this gal looked like she worked at a bank. She had a nice dress on. She had dress shoes. She had, stockings on and, some jewelry. And she didn't look like she was running the bank, but she looked like she was working at the bank. And I was amazed. She sat down and told a story. She was looking for this hangdog guy that had run off. And she goes to say, well, he told me he was going to open up a shop and he had a contract with General Motors to paint these concept show cars that they take to the car shows for the rollout for the new year. And I'm stopping. I'm going, wait a minute, you thought that guy? I couldn't put two and two together. It got better. And she said, well, he borrowed like $3,000 from me because he said he needed to get some tools and he was going to do this and this and this with me and we were going to be together. And I'm getting deeper and deeper into this hole. And then she said, then he stole a bunch of my mother's heirlooms out of my apartment when he ran off. And he had sex with her 3 or 4 times in the 2 weeks they were together. I was stunned. My wife was stunned. We're like, wait a minute. That guy scored with this girl. And not only scored with this girl, but she believed that this guy who looked like he was lucky to know how to work a sander. This guy was not an expert paint guy who could do guide coats and finish expensive finishes and No. But he had charmed her. He had laid a charm down on her and she bought it. Now, I talk about this to women. I go, look, your first line of defense in understanding men is this. You go to the bar after work, a nice bar, like a wine bar, someplace where professionals go. You're a professional woman. You go with a couple of your friends, you go and you get a drink, and you're sitting at the bar and there's a seat to the side of the 3 of you, and a guy shows up and he's wearing Cellini slacks and wingtips and he's got a dress polo buttoned down with cufflinks and he puts his briefcase on the thing and you ask him, you get talking, he buys a round of drinks from you and, for you. And you ask him what he does and he says, well, I'm a CPA with McMurtry, Villegas and Hart. And you talk more to him and he says, and I'm working on my MBA at night. It's kind of slow because I can only do a class a semester because I'm so busy. But in 3 years on my MBA and, I'm pretty sure when Hart retires, I've already been promised a partnership. Huh. And I ask women, I go, how good looking does that guy need to be to get your attention? And they'll say, well, reasonable, but not really. Yeah, right. Exactly right. Because here's what we already know about that guy. He can get him to go to work every day. He's got ambition enough to get through a hard college program because I don't think I could be a CPA. I don't know that I could get through those courses. And he's got enough ambition that when he gets off working 50 hours a week, 55, 60, 65 in tax season, he's getting an MBA. So that woman knows that guy's got a resume. He's a guy who's going to own a condo on the north side of town, probably driving an Infiniti. He can put her in a nice car if they get married. Kids are going to a nice school, and they're going to go vacation at Puerto Vallarta every year. And she's going to have a good life, at least financially. She knows he's passed that test. So here's guy number 2 walks in. Now, what she does, the women, the 3 gals don't know is this guy's never played well with others. He's a 1. He gets fired from jobs because he tells the boss what's what, and he doesn't like to take orders, or he gets, he just gets bored, or something comes up. He runs into some girl, decides to stay with her and sleep in and not go to work. And he bounces from job to job. And he lives with his mom because she makes that lasagna just perfect for him. And she puts those little dryer sheets in with his clothes, the ones that come in the package with the little bear on them. And his clothes always smell good, and she folds them for him. And he's got a kid living in Virginia or North Carolina, but he just talks to the kid once in a while. Some other guy's raising his kid because he don't want to go out there. It's too hard life. And his ex doesn't really like him, doesn't respect him. So he goes in there to the bar, and here's what he says. He's not going to come in there and say, I'm a guy I don't work well. I don't have a job really. I started my own business, but I only work like 15 hours a week, just enough money for some party money and gas money and to spend on women. And I'm kind of a loser. I'm looking for somebody to take care of me. He's not going to tell him that. he might embellish his accomplishments a little bit, but he's going to try to steer away from that, because you're going to go out the parking lot and you're not going to see an Infiniti. You're going to see a 15-year-old Honda or an old Chevy truck, right? He's going to find the most vulnerable and gullible and needy of the three of you. He's going to start staring at her eyes, giving her an amazed look, and he's going to say, "You are so beautiful. The light is reflecting off your eyes like the moon reflects off the Gulf Shores pier. I have to get to know you better." And he's going to go charm, because he's got no resume. All right? That's a 1. And charm is your biggest red flag for a number 1. So let's move on to 2s. Right? 2s are guys that do daily life pretty well, right? They may get some parking tickets or may even get a DUI, but after they get one, they don't get any more. They smarten up. And they go to work every day, and they can shower and shave and dress themselves and get to work, and they're not downloading things off the dark web, and they're not flipping weed out of their trunk. They're not doing stupid stuff like that. They're pretty solid guys. They go to work. When my son was in his mid-20s, that's when I started thinking about this paradigm, this 1, 2, 3. All his friends were 2s. They were all good, hard-working guys, and they did their 40 or 50, and they were very honorable about that. But when they got off work, here's what they did. It was time to have fun. They said, "Look, I worked, I put my time in, and now I want to go fish or hunt, or I want to sit at home and smoke my one hitter and have a few Jack and Cokes, throw back, put the headphones on, play some Rocket League with my buds, or watch a movie and chill." And I don't know how the dishes are going to get done if I'm in a relationship. I kind of take that. I'm a bachelor guy, right? I'm not really interested in taking on the responsibility of a wife and child, wife and her girlfriend to become a wife and child, because I want to have fun when I get off work. I'm willing to have sex with a girl, if she wants to break even with me, she works, I work, we come home, we have sex, good for me. It's not good for the girl, because she's going to want more. But they're guys that look good. They dress okay. They go to work. They may even be ambitious. They're moving, because they work. If you work hard, you're going to move up, right? If you work at an AC company and you put ACs in, put the vents in, put the compressors in, you can eventually be made a supervisor, because you're going to be working with a bunch of 1s, and they're going to push you up the ladder automatically. So these guys either don't have the social skills to be any better, to be 3s. They can't move up the ladder to be 3s, or they don't want to. And I'll give my son credit. He used to be a 2, and he's moved up. He's taking care of a gal, and I'm pretty impressed. And he's doing it probably quicker than I did it. I don't think I hit my stride till I tried. I always tried to do, but you have to have some skill too. And I'll get to that. Here's my story about a 2. And this is a true story. I had a woman and a guy, this is probably 10 or 12 years ago. And the woman and her husband came in, and they were having a nasty fight. It was on. It was a one-way traffic. She was mad, and he was confused. And they're sitting on this couch in front of me, and she tells his story of why he didn't understand why she's mad. And she says, "I'll tell you why I'm mad. I called him, 2 nights ago, 2 days ago. And then I called him at lunch, before lunch, and said, I am just over life. I need you to call me a psychiatrist and get me an appointment. I need to get on medications or go to the hospital. I need hospitalized. I can't take anymore." And this guy, he said, I did what you asked. And he detailed how he gave up his smoke break at lunch, his Dr. Pepper smoke. He went out there and fumbled around on his little phone and researched after he got her message. He figured out his insurance plan and found a psychiatrist and called that psychiatrist's office, and by God, he got her an appointment. And he texted her. He said, "Hey, honey, I got you an appointment. It's 2 Thursdays from now at Dr. Fleischman's office at 9:30 in the morning." And she said, she told him, she said, "Your text had no empathy." And he didn't understand. And he's like, Mr. Mark, what am I supposed to do with it? What did I do wrong? And I said, you don't know what you did wrong? He goes, no, she told me she needed a psychiatrist. I did what she asked me to do. And I said, you don't understand. He goes, do you? And I go, yeah, I think I can tell you what your wife was looking for. He said, no way. No way can you tell me what she was looking for. I said, yeah, way. I probably can. Let me take a stab at it. So I said, so when you called him and told him that, you weren't being literal, were you, ma'am? And she just looked at me sarcastic and said, of course not. I said, so what you really wanted from him was the right response was not to dig through the phone and send you a site. You weren't being literal. What you really wanted him to do was say, you know, honey, I'm hearing you say you're really worn down and overwhelmed. Man, the big guy's got this. Look, don't worry about cooking anything tonight. I'm taking you out to Applebee's because that's where you like to go. We're going to have a good dinner. We'll come home. I'm going to rub your feet. We're going to watch a movie. I'm going to hold you, let you de-stress, get you back, give you back rub, put you to bed, tell you I love you, tell you don't have to worry about anything because I'm the rock. I'm the rock. I'm your rock. I got you. And I've got empty. I know you're overwhelmed. Your emotions are riled up and you're stressed and don't worry about it, honey. I'll be home at 5 and we'll get this thing going. And I look at him and he goes, there's no blanking way. And she said, exactly what I wanted you to do. And he just was in me. He couldn't, his mind, you could see the smoke coming out of his ears where all his gears were all jammed and the machinery was just shutting down. He's like, I can't understand her. She told me, why didn't she tell me that? Yeah, she did some meta communication. She expected him to read behind the first layer to see what she was really getting at. He couldn't do it. Predictably, they were divorced in less than a year. He was a 2. He was a guy who worked hard. I liked him. But he had no concept of what a woman needed. So sometimes when you have a 2, it's because that guy says, look, I don't want to be, I'll work. I'll split it even with you. I mean, it probably won't be even because you're better at the housework than me. And you know, I don't know how the dishes are going to get done and the clothes fall. But, you know, if you push me hard enough, I'll cut the grass and fix the fence. But he won't be able to attend to you emotionally. Or he doesn't want to. But the second guy doesn't have the social skills to do it. He doesn't have the inherent emotional IQ to be any better than a 2. He's just stuck. It's remedial time. Sometimes I can help guys that are 2 kind of figure out women, but sometimes I've had guys tell me, well, when she's crying, what do I do? And I go, well, you should console her when she's crying. He goes, what if she's crying because she's mad at me? I said, then you have to decide. You don't hug her then. Maybe you have to figure out whether you owe her an apology or not. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And they just like, really, this is too complicated for me. I need a paint by numbers set. I need an instruction manual. No, it's on the fly. So here's the thing about a 3. There are no stories. I don't have any stories about 3s because a guy who's a 3 is a guy who has a resume. He goes to work every day. He showers, shaves, brushes his teeth. He can make his own breakfast. He doesn't do anything really, really wrong in his daily functioning. I mean, all problems. I tell you, my wife can come up with a bunch of things that she wishes I wouldn't do or do better or something. But the guy who's a 3 is where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there pretty much 24/7. And when the kid's sick, he knows when it's his turn to stay up. And here's a 3. A 3 understands his role. This guy understands his role. He knows that it's his job to take care of his wife. And I understand we're in a different place, not doing a political thing here, religious thing. But I'll tell you why. I've had some very, very modern humanist women, and they always go back to their reproductive drive. I don't care if they're far left leaning and women equal right, it doesn't matter. Reproductive drive say a woman wants security. And I've never found maybe an exception or two, but usually that's what women want that. Even if they're, they want a relationship of equality, they still want the guy to do that and whatever. So 3, he didn't have to be guided into that. He kind of knows what to do. And here's my task, my little thing. Guys ask me how I grade a man. I go, is he a guy that you can trust to get the vaccine up the side of the mountain in a blizzard to the orphanage to save the sick kids or die trying? Is he that guy who says, I'm not going to let those kids down, and I can deal with the cold, and I can deal with the hike up the mountain and the pain and the discomfort and the fear, because it's got to be done? Or is he a guy who says, no, let somebody else do it? That's too hard. I hope the kids will be okay. Or I'll steal the vaccine and sell it so I can get some booze. That's a 1. That's what a 1 would do. A 3 really doesn't need too much description because they inherently understand how to provide emotional, financial, and physical security. They know how to protect a nest. That's the thing I use, my analogies. They understand a woman has kids, she has a nest. She's got to concentrate on what's in the nest. He's got to do some things outside the nest so she can relax and concentrate and do what she wants to do. But however the woman wants, and I don't care if it's a more modern, liberalized view of marriage, doesn't matter. Whatever she wants, he's figured out how to deliver what she needs. That's a 3. It doesn't matter. You can configure marriage, relationships, however. It doesn't matter. The guy knows what to do, when to do it, where to do it, why to do it. Now, it's not saying that she'll always be happy because nobody ever gets enough of what they want. With the saying, the right amount of anything good is always more. I've never met a woman who's got enough security. I've never met a man who's got enough beauty, sexuality, right? Nobody ever gets enough. You'd always want more if it's good. We accept limitations. But this is my grading scale that I give to my clients. This is how you understand men. And men understand me exactly. They know the difference between a 1, 2, and a 3. My son knows. He talks all the time about the ones that show up on the job site and last a month. Right? We all know. Guys know, because guys don't fool guys. Guys fool women. I don't want you to be fooled. Now, if you've already got, my buddy who does the IT work and produces my podcast told me, and Matt's a pretty bright guy, and he said something that stuck with me. He goes, 80% of all marriage problems can be solved in the selection process. Well, he's right. And if you've already picked somebody, you might be saying, well, what do I do? Well, I can only do so much in 30, 35 minutes, right? I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm rolling pretty good today, but I don't want to that's a whole different story. But here, what I will say. If you've got a 1, good luck. You're not going to be able, unless this guy has a Scrooge Christmas Carol moment where he sees the ghost of Christmas past and goes to rehab or life changes. Good luck with that. You're not going to be able to change someone's core values. They are who they want to be because that's what people do. But you can sometimes motivate or educate a 2 into being a 3. That's a whole different story, and I'll cover that in another episode. So listen, let's get to this. I'm grateful that you joined me. If you listened in, I try to make things experiential and interesting and hopefully entertaining. I don't want to do what normally therapists do, which is do therapist speak and not be very, not very normal, not very listenable to, right? I don't do Psychology Today research stuff on my podcast. Just don't do it. It's not useful. I want to give you common sense things that work. And so if you go to my website, I'm not trying, podcast is so I can reach more people because I can only see 25 people a week, 30. And I want to get some stuff out there so that if you can't afford a therapist, you can't find one you like, maybe you like what I bring to the table and you can have it for free. But if you want to buy my book, Toxic Words, 20 Things You Should Never Say to Yourself, it's kind of an entry level, really readable. It's kind of like a chicken soup written. It's it's conversationally written. It's on Amazon, but it's also on Kindle Unlimited for free. And it's also, you can find it on YouTube as an audiobook. But you can also send me a question. If you want me to answer a question, I get enough questions, I'll do a mailback episode. ComfortableCouchShow.com is a website. But I appreciate you listening. And what I want you to, my sign off as always, do this for me. will not only make your relationships better. If you listen to me this, differentiate between 1, 2, and 3. Pick right. Watch, learn, make a good decision. But always keep your thoughts clear, straight, and true. Thank you again for joining. This is Mark Underwood, host of the Crumble Couch Show, signing off. Thanks again.